Hello, and thank you for taking time to watch the 2025-2026 outreach presentation for the Sacramento Valley Water Quality Coalition. By watching this presentation, you will fulfill your annual outreach requirement as a member of the Sac Valley Coalition. We plan to cover a variety of topics today, beginning with a brief overview of the coalition, why and how it was formed, and the benefits of being a coalition member. We'll also talk about the really exciting exemption of the Pitt River region. We will review the surface water monitoring results from the past year, which will be a very important section given the number of exceedances the coalition has experienced during the year. Then we will move on to talk about member requirements for the coming year, which includes the farm evaluation report. Throughout the presentation, several links to separate web pages will be mentioned, and these links will be clickable in the PowerPoint presentation and available below in the video description. The Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program began in 2003 and operates using Waste Discharge Requirements, or WDRs. These are issued by state and regional water quality control boards. State management of the ILRP is divided up into regions, and the Sacramento Valley falls within Region 5, which is managed by the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, or Regional Board for short. Within Region 5, there are 14 total agricultural coalitions and 9 WDRs. Under the ILRP, all land that is commercial and irrigated requires regulatory coverage by either joining an agricultural coalition or obtaining coverage as an individual. Most growers choose to join a coalition for two main reasons. Cost. It is less expensive to complete the required surface and groundwater monitoring, and anonymity of farm practices. All member reports are aggregated, and individual reporting data cannot be tied back to an individual grower. The Sac Valley Coalition is the largest agricultural coalition in the state. It is composed of more than 7,300 landowners encompassing over 1 million irrigated acres. The coalition is supported by local farm bureaus, resource conservation districts, county agricultural commissioners, and crop specialists with the University of California Cooperative Extension. The coalition is managed by the Northern California Water Association, or NCWA. NCWA is the legal third party recognized by the water boards. The coalition is administered locally by 10 subwatershed groups. The coalition helps ensure compliance with the WDR through the coordination of surface and groundwater monitoring, compiling of required reports, and importantly, offering anonymity in the reporting of on-farm practices. Now, as we just talked about, while the coalition is heavily involved in helping landowners become and maintain compliant with the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program, it is important to mention that the coalition itself is not the regulatory agency. The coalition is an option by which landowners can comply with the state-mandated program. The coalition only provides information to the regional board that is required by the WDR. The State Water Board and the Regional Water Board mandates and manages the program respectively, and the coalition is the go-between for you, the member, and the regulatory agency, the water boards. However, the coalition is not the regulatory agency. Pictured here is just another way to look at the structure of the coalition. At the very top are the regulatory agencies, aka the State Water Board and the Regional Water Board. The coalition, through NCWA, umbrellas the 10 subwatershed groups. All this while working with a large number of other organizations and consultants, which are pictured off to the side. You may or may not have noticed that I have been saying 10 subwatersheds when last year I was saying 11. This is because on August 22, 2025, the Pitt River region was fully exempted from the ILRP. This means that they no longer have to participate, financially or otherwise, in the ILRP. Many people contributed to this achievement, including Dr. Tina Saitone, Tammy Humphrey, the Pitt River Subwatershed Board, and of course regional board staff who made the recommendation to exempt the region to their board. We are saddened that others with enormous contributions did not live to see this day, including Dr. Ken Tate, Pam Giacomini, and Susan Fergain. The Pitt River exemption is the third exemption the Coalition has secured since 2021, and work continues for other low-threat areas such as El Dorado County. Okay, we're going to switch gears now to talk about surface water monitoring. The coordination of surface water monitoring is one of the primary ways the Coalition fulfills its and landowners' obligations under the WDR. Coalition members are allowed to operate using representative monitoring sites at which water and sediment samples are taken to represent the entire drainage. The Coalition collects water quality samples and sediment samples on a 3-year cycle of assessment core. The 2026 monitoring year, which began on October 1st, 2025 and will end on September 30th, 2026, is a core year. During core years, only sampling needed for management plan implementation and single exceedance follow-up takes place. This means that core years are typically less expensive than assessment years. However, as we'll talk more about in a bit, there were quite a few exceedances and management plans triggered during the previous water year, so costs are not as reduced as we might have hoped. The next assessment year will take place in 2028. In subwatersheds with the reduced monitoring option, which are El Dorado, Lake, and Napa counties, assessment monitoring will take place. This is required once every 5 years in accordance with the reduced monitoring option. The previous monitoring year, the 2025 monitoring year, was an assessment year, and as such, a broader suite of analytes were sampled for. Unfortunately, no management plans were completed and 4 new management plans were triggered. No exceedances of trace metals or non-pyrethroid registered pesticides were observed, and only 1 exceedance for nutrients, ammonia total as nitrogen, was observed. But, as you can see, pyrethroids continue to be a major issue and 8 exceedances were observed. Additionally, toxicity in a variety of forms were unusually high, triggering and/or extending management plans. We'll talk more about these toxicity exceedances in a little bit. The close of the 2025 monitoring year brings overall exceedance rates for pyrethroid pesticides to levels greater than 15% in most valley floor subwatersheds. Exceedances at the Pine Creek site in the Butte-Yuba Sutter subwatershed are at 67.9%. Exceedances in the lower Huncut monitoring site, also in BYS, are at 38.9%. The 6 pyrethroid pesticides that are monitored for can be seen on the right. They are cypermethrin, lambda-cyhalothrin, bifenthrin, esfenvalerate, permethrin, and cyfluthrin. Below each are product names commonly containing the pyrethroid pesticide. This list is by no means comprehensive, but please take a moment to pause the video and look if you apply any. Pyrethroids are highly toxic at low concentrations to invertebrates eaten by waterfowl and fish. Additionally, the trigger limit for an exceedance is extremely low. In terms of toxicity, some pyrethroids are more toxic than others, with bifenthrin being the most toxic and permethrin being the least toxic. But despite this toxicity rating, growers should be extremely cautious when applying any pyrethroid pesticide. Pyrethroids bind tightly to organic matter and soil particles, so among other BMPs, growers should pay special attention to reducing drift and sediment runoff. A stewardship approach is the best approach. For more information on pyrethroids and BMPs, please refer to the resource links at the bottom of this slide. They can also be found in the video description. In addition to the pyrethroid exceedances, there was also an unusually high number of toxicities to Solanastrum and Cereodaphnia. Selenastrum and Stereodaphnia are what are called indicator species in the monitoring plan, and their presence, absence, or health status reflect the overall quality of the water. They are really meant to catch any water quality issues from constituents the coalition does not specifically sample for. Selenastrum is an algae and more likely to be affected by herbicides and fungicides rather than insecticides. And Stereodaphnia is a water flea and more likely to be affected by insecticides and fungicides rather than herbicides. Exceedances for these two species were observed in Sac Amador, Butte Yuba Sutter, Yolo, Colusa Glen, and Shasta Tehama. At Anderson Creek in Shasta Tehama, Freshwater Creek in Colusa Glen, and Lower Huncut Creek in Butte Yuba Sutter, 2 exceedances were observed and management plans were triggered. Unfortunately, the coalition was unable to tie any of these toxicity exceedances to one or more pesticides, and so the toxicities are categorized as unknown. So, what does unknown toxicity mean? Well, after each exceedance, a review of pesticide use reporting data is conducted. The review for these particular exceedances did not point to any smoking guns. Very few pesticides that can affect Selenastrum and Stereodaphnia are analyzed for during coalition monitoring events. And only a few pesticides based on use and toxicity are monitored for each month. Unfortunately, this does leave hundreds of pesticides that could be toxic unanalyzed. However, at the same time, it does provide significant cost savings for the coalition to not have to monitor for every pesticide every month. Now, there was some follow-up testing for the Selenastrum toxicities, and the results did point towards a volatile organic compound like a pesticide as possibly contributing. Okay, this leads to the million-dollar question. Could there have been other sources other than agriculture that contributed to the exceedances? And the answer is yes, it's possible. The coalition is currently researching and in conversations with the regional board about this very topic. We want to ensure that the decrease in survival was not impacted by ambient water quality conditions or sources other than agriculture. Because in addition to wanting to avoid a management plan, we also want to make sure that these other possible sources do not become the monitoring obligations of agriculture. The observed exceedance rates for pyrethroids and toxicities is cause for concern. And as such, the Coalition would like to share some resources from the Coalition for Urban and Rural Environmental Stewardship, or CURES. At www.curesworks.org, you can find videos and publications in both English and Spanish on a variety of water quality topics, such as nitrogen management, surface water quality protection, irrigation efficiency, and protecting pollinators. Some publications even qualify for continuing education for those with the nitrogen self-certification. We encourage all members who apply pesticides to take a moment and check out the website. As of October 2025, the Coalition has 10 active management plans, which is double from this time last year. 9 of the 10 are related to pyrethroids or unknown toxicity. And as a reminder, a management plan is triggered when there are 2 or more exceedances of the same constituent at the same site within a 3-year period. They can only be completed through a combination of monitoring results and management practice documentation after a minimum of 3 years have passed without any additional exceedances. This means that each time another exceedance is observed, the management plan is pushed out for another 3 years at least. Please take a moment to pause the video, look for your subwatershed, and see if any of these management plans apply to you. The Coalition also has several sites with single exceedances. 1 more exceedance at any of these sites within 3 years from that first exceedance date will trigger a management plan. You may be asking, what do management plans mean practically to me as a member? Well, each management plan triggers the requirement for more surface water monitoring and more member reporting. This in turn triggers increased consultant and staff time, and it all equates to increased costs. So, looking ahead to the rest of the 2026 monitoring year, which did already begin on October 1st, here are the main things we would like members to take away. The best way to keep costs down is to avoid triggering exceedances and management plans and to complete existing management plans as soon as possible. To do that, please always exercise extreme caution when applying all pesticides, but especially pyrethroids. Okay, we are now going to move on to talk about requirements coalition members should keep in mind for this coming year. Now, for the most part, member requirements are quite similar to requirements of previous years. And this may look like a lot, however, for most members, the requirements this year are fairly routine, and the subwatersheds have worked hard to streamline their systems. Keeping track of your status and completing reporting on time can be cumbersome, but since you are a member of the coalition, we are here to assist you. We will notify you of everything that is needed for compliance and help you with meeting the requirements. I would like to mention, however, that the ultimate responsibility for completing all the requirements is up to each individual grower. So let's walk through what will be due this year. First up is the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan worksheet. This report will stay on farm. The WDR specifies March 1st as a deadline. Members in high vulnerability areas for nitrogen and outliers must certify this report, and we'll talk more about certification in a little bit. Next up is the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan Summary Report, which does need to be turned into the coalition. The WDR specifies March 1st as the due date, but some subwatersheds have different internal deadlines to account for follow-up. Members in the valley floor are also required to complete a Groundwater Quality Management Practice Implementation Report, or MPIR. This is available to be completed online. And members in a drainage with an active surface water quality management plan are required to complete a surface water MPIR. Your subwatershed will let you know if you need to complete a surface water MPIR. Areas identified as high vulnerability for sediment erosion must complete a Sediment Erosion Control Plan, or SECP. This needs to be completed and certified once. And again, we'll discuss options for certification in a few minutes. And of course, there is the annual outreach participation, which you are completing by watching this video. Lastly, we have the Farm Evaluation Plan, which is quote-unquote new this year. The Farm Evaluation Plan is actually required to be completed every 5 years by all members. It was last required for the 2020 crop year and now will be required again for the 2025 crop year. Many of the subwatersheds allow the report to seamlessly be completed online with the rest of the reporting, and other subwatersheds will provide a hard copy or PDF for completion of the report. The farm evaluation must be submitted to the coalition, and the WDR specifies March 1st as the due date. Now you may ask, I'm reporting all this information in the INMP summary report and the farm evaluation plan. How is all that data being used? Well, all member data regarding management practices or nitrogen and pesticide use is reported to the board, but it is reported using an anonymous ID number or as an aggregate of all the data received from a section, township, or county. No identifying member data is reported to the regional board. This is one of the many benefits of being a coalition member. Additionally, member data is used as justification for the completion of management plans to help delineate the Sac Valley from other Central Valley coalitions, and most importantly, to demonstrate that Sac Valley members are employing practices that are already protective of surface water and groundwater. Members who fail to complete their reporting on time will have their names submitted to the regional board as required by the WDR. At this point, the regional board, as the regulatory agency, will follow up with members to get those late reports in the form of phone calls and letters. The coalition will continue to assist members in completing the reports even after the deadline passes. However, it should be mentioned that there may be late fees to account for the additional staff time required to help with late reporters. The regional board performs what is called progressive enforcement. Displayed here is the enforcement pyramid used for late reporters. Between each level is a waiting period in which members are given an opportunity to respond. If a member does not respond, they move on up to the next level of enforcement. Now, the goal of these efforts is not to frighten landowners or collect the fines necessarily, but it is to get the landowners compliant and receive the data. That being said, there are consequences if a member fails to respond and submit the late report, including fines up to $1,000 per day. Similar processes are used for members who fail to pay their dues and non-enrolled landowners. If you are ever a recipient of one of these types of letters, please respond immediately to avoid being escalated to the next level. However, if you are a member, the best way to avoid enforcement from the regional board is simply to complete your reporting on time and pay your dues. Okay, as you recall, the INMP worksheet and SECP require certification if you're in an area determined to be high risk for nitrogen or sediment erosion. One option to certify these reports is to become self-certified. The INMP Grower Self-Certification class is available online at any time. After taking the course and passing an open book online exam, growers become eligible to self-certify their INMP worksheet. If you use a CCA, they may also be able to certify your worksheet as long as they have completed the CCA Nitrogen Certification course. The SECP Self-Certification Training course will be available during the month of February. The training also requires passing an open book online exam. To access the trainings, please visit the link on the page. If you'd like to certify your reports in a different way, please reach out to your sub-watershed for options. To remain a member in good standing, you must also pay your annual fees and dues on time, or you risk being dropped in enforcement from the regional board. Fees are determined by each sub-watershed and depend on factors such as size, number of monitoring sites, and existence of any management plans. The fees cover, among other things, the State Water Quality Oversight Fee, which is evaluated on a per acre basis. For 2024, the fee is $1.21 for irrigated pasture with no external nitrogen inputs, and $1.49 per irrigated acre for all other crops. Fees also cover programmatic costs such as surface water monitoring and local costs such as membership support. 2026 will be year 5 of the on-farm drinking water well monitoring program in the Sacramento Valley. This requirement is mandated by the State Water Board for the entire Central Valley. Under this requirement, members must sample all wells on enrolled parcels that are actively used for drinking or cooking. Wells must be sampled for nitrate plus nitrite as nitrogen. An ELAP certified lab must be used for analysis. Members must sample annually before January 1st until their results meet one of the following laid out in the red box. For other questions regarding this requirement, please contact the regional board, whose information is on the bottom of the slide in yellow. And as we wrap up this presentation, I would like to emphasize once again that the Coalition is not the regulatory agency. We are one option to help you comply with the state-mandated Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program. We are the go-between between you, the landowner and member, and the regulatory agencies, the water boards. With that, we have come to the end of the 2024-2025 outreach video. Listed here are some resources for you if you have any more questions about what we discussed today. As always, you can contact your local subwatershed or Bruce Houdesheldt, Director of Water Quality, if you require any more information or clarification. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day.